We are part of the Fired Up Sports Network of shows. Please check out other Fired Up Sports Network podcasts like the P-Lot Pod, Water Cooler Talk, Bell Smashers, Philly Sports Love and Pain, Drunk on Broad, Beer Battered Sports, and the Fired Up Sports Show, which are available on all major podcasting hosting sites and social media. Also, check out Mark Ramos' Roundup on firedupsports.com, which breaks down the happenings going on with all your favorite local teams.
The Philadelphia Eagles are Super Bowl champions.
E-A-G-L-E-S, Eagles!
Swing and a miss, struck him out. The Philadelphia Phillies are 2008 World Champions of Baseball.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Flyers are going to win the Stanley Cup. The Flyers win the Stanley Cup for the lead. Yes!
Iverson, wow, what a fake off Daniels as he broke his ankles and got all the way to the cup.
Hey, good morning. Episode 141, Drunk on the Birds this morning. We spent all week trying to manipulate schedules to try to get a show together. But John from the P-Lot Pod, one of our other Fired Up Sports shows, is joining us this morning to talk everything Birds, everything NFL. John, welcome in.
Thanks for having me, Don. Yeah, it's going to be a very interesting week, I think, in the NFL as well. We haven't really seen too many upsets occur, and I kind of have the vibe that I think today we might see a little bit of parity with some of the games this week. I don't think that's going to happen with the Eagles, though. That's just my opinion.
Before we talk Bird, don't hold anybody back. What's the upset alert? Who's on upset alert today?
So there's two games I have my eye on that I think that we could see an upset in either one. It is the Bills are 6-point favorites on the road in Washington, and the Miami Dolphins are at home laying, I believe, 6.5. I don't know if the line has changed to the Denver Broncos. And the reason I cite those two matchups is because the Bills and the Dolphins are both playing one another next week. And I think they're clearly the two best teams in the AFC East, especially with the Jets losing Aaron Rodgers, and New England still winless and not, I think, being the least talented of the four teams in the AFC East as well. Okay. We'll talk about that later on. I can go into more detail with that too.
Okay.
Besides the look ahead part, I feel like the Bills are maybe in more of a risk to get knocked off because they're on the road and they're playing in this crappy weather that we're experiencing, but it's a lot worse down in Maryland than it is up in Pennsylvania.
Yeah. Listen, there's always games early on in the season. I feel like this is like the extended version of the preseason. So it's like trying to get these teams getting right, and which is why I think it's really important for people to focus on the hometown team. They're 2-0, right? The fact that those games early on, the Vikings game and they open up the season, those games were ugly, but they're still wins. And at the end of the season, you're not really going to go back and be like, you don't get half credit. you don't get the half credit.
Yeah,
for the win.
At the end of the season, no one cares if you weren't warmed up to start the year.
Right.
We see a lot of coaches that get fired. There's going to be one game today where between the Chargers and the Vikings, where one of the coaches I feel like is definitely on the hot seat, and the other, if they just win 3 games, he could be on the future hot seat as well with I'm referring to Brandon Staley and Kevin O'Connell. But yeah,
Brandon Staley is very perplexing.
Yeah,
on many levels.
Because especially if Justin Herbert, come on. I thought them hiring him and then not hiring an offensive guy because you have Justin Herbert. Like it just kind of
Yeah.
defies all logic. But we'll talk about that later on today.
Remind me to connect back with Justin Herbert because I saw something funny online that related back to something college football related. So,
oh yeah, what the Oregon boat racing Colorado yesterday?
Yeah, but Bo Nix and Justin Herbert played against each other. And
Yeah,
Justin
I
Herbert
keep
has
seeing.
been
I didn't know Bo Nix was still in college. Like I know with COVID, it messed up everyone's eligibility. There's some guys with like 8 years of eligibility in college football.
It's wild. Like that whole college football extended, like these guys, it reminds Sean Clifford, right? The kid at Penn State who essentially was at Penn State for almost a decade. Just wild.
Like it's funny because you got guys who are like 25, 26, like playing college football. And then you're like, wait, you're like, what? Like, I think I remember when like Brandon Whedon played at Oklahoma State, and that was because he was a minor league baseball player who couldn't make it to the big leagues. So he came back to college. He never played college football, so he's still technically eligible to play college football.
Right. God, it's wild. Wild stuff. But listen, let's get into the Birds, right? It's been a minute, right? They played the game last Thursday. So it'll be, I think I counted like 12 or 13 days in between the Vikings game and then this game on Monday night. So it gives them that good extended break early on in the season. Talk to me about that game because the way that game started off very, very funky. You know, they only end up they have a lot of squandered opportunities early. You know, the Vikings were kind of loose with the ball, turning the ball over, but then not being able to capitalize on points early. And they kind of let the Vikings hang around. Talk to me about how that game started and where you were early on in that game.
Oh, I was at the game.
Oh, all right. There you go.
I was
First
at the game. I was at the
Okay.
My family and I was season tickets. So yeah, I was at the game. So yeah, it was the Eagles, they like a lot of teams, they script the first 10, 15 plays of the game, and that was like really like just not good. Like they just like the direct like quarterback draws from Hurts. Like I think teams now are cognizant of the fact that, you know, they're going to probably like Jalen Hurts is going to run with the ball, and the read option plays. I think teams are just, I mean, the Vikings ran the same defense the Patriots ran 4 days prior to that. So Brian Flores, obviously being a Bill Belichick disciple, they run the same type of defense. Yeah, it was like the Eagles kind of were like, oh, they're not going to run the same defense we saw 4 days ago, are they? And it felt like maybe like a little bit before, like I would say maybe like midway through the second quarter, I think they all kind of realized, oh, they really are running the same thing we saw last Sunday. And that's when you saw them just put on a bunch of points on them.
Yeah, that's one thing that I think you're seeing in terms of the new coordinators, right? The Brian Johnson, that adjustment to now course correct that script going into now the third week that you're planning that script to go into the game. It just seemed like it was just like they didn't course correct until they started realizing that they could just run the ball incessantly until they have that one drive where it's like a 16 play drive and 13 plays are runs. And I feel like maybe half of those 13 runs were all the same play. You know, really trying to see how they can maximize feeding DeAndre Swift the ball. I think that's the adjustment that I'm looking for from Brian Johnson moving forward.
Yeah,
right?
and I think
adjusting that script.
And the Eagles aren't just going to become this like mega run team. Like the Vikings' biggest weakness on defense was their secondary. So they just dropped 7, 8 guys back in coverage, you know, as much as they possibly can, just to not get beat. But the flip side of doing that is you're going to get run over on the ground. And
Yeah.
that's why the Eagles just kept running the ball on them. Like I saw
Mhm.
people saying, "Oh, you can't win consistently if you just game plan to run the ball." They didn't really game plan to run the ball the whole game. It was just, hey, they're just going to let us run the ball on them. Let's just do it.
Yeah, I think this is the type of conversations that I think we've heard a lot of, which is like the pick your poison with this offense, right? You're going to put, 7 guys, you're going to float 7 guys back and not crowd the line. We're going to run the ball. You're going to crowd the line. We're going to go over top. That they have the offensive weapons to be able to get the ball wherever they want, depending on what the offense gives it. It's kind of like that amoeba, right? We're going to see week to week. It could look different, and you saw kind of the frustration in the middle of the game with AJ Brown, right? Feeling like he's not getting the ball. And you see that conversation happen between him and Hurts and Devontae Smith and Sirianni and what, you see that frustration. But I think then the conversation becomes, hey, listen, like you're going to have your day. Devontae's going to have his day. We're all going to have these days where they're going to take away something and it's going to allow, they have the weapons where it's going to allow them to exploit something else.
Yeah, exactly. Like I think you're hit the nail right on the head, Donna. Like I know you mentioned, like I'm going to bring up. I know we're going to talk a little bit about fantasy football today too. It's like, I have Travis Kelce in one of my leagues. I know Travis Kelce is the primary guy who's going to get the ball, right? For the Eagles, there's a bunch of different guys that could get the ball.
Yeah.
So one guy is just going to have a big game, and someone else might not have a big game due to it. So, like you said, pick your poison. And the Eagles don't they don't really do one thing on offense, and that's it. They mix it up a lot, which is good. It's why they won 14 games in the regular season last year.
Yeah.
It's why they steamrolled their way to the Super Bowl. And it's why they almost won the Super Bowl last year as well. So,
I mean, what the stat with in the last 2 seasons, they're when Hurts starts, they're 20-2. Like that's not a surprise when you look at his consistency, when you look at his ability, and even if he's had a rough start for the season, I think a lot of people are getting on him for the rough start that he's had, that he's not really picking up where he left off. But I think you look at the leadership in those moments, that there's a lot of accountability post game to say, like, I'm the guy that's got to get better. I'm the guy that's got to be the leader. And you really, I think the evolution is going to see him turn into almost like that point guard where, like, I realize that I have all these weapons. You saw the first game where, Swift gets 3 touches and Dallas Goedert, I think, got targeted maybe 2 or 3 times. You saw them shift, right? I have to focus on those guys, because if I do that, it allows me to open up, Devontae on the outside. It opens up AJ on the outside. I can get Swift, in the flat. I have to manipulate this offense. So I think there's a good learning curve to be able to get him to a place where he really does lead this team, right? And you saw that as soon as they started to run the ball, the control of the offense became a lot more prominent.
Yeah, and you know what, Don, too, I agree. Like, course correcting, working on things too. I mean, if you look at, the only team right now that's looked dominant through the first 2 games is the Dallas Cowboys. And they're going to play the Cardinals later today. And obviously they lost Trayvon Diggs already for the full season. Mm-hmm. Trayvon Diggs is probably their second best player on defense behind Micah Parsons, right?
Yeah.
That's a huge loss for them. And their starting center now has a soft tissue injury. Tyler Biadasz is a pretty good center. And then Zach Martin, who they just re-signed, to an extension in the before the season started, he's battling a knee injury. And yeah, it's just, it's a marathon, not a sprint. Mm-hmm. And I think for the Eagles, and I know everyone's freaked out because the Vikings got a lot of passing yards at the end of the game. Now, look, you want to put our tinfoil hats on. Vikings got away with a lot of holding calls at the end of that game.
They really did. But that's a product of a team that is able to get up early, and you force teams in a position to have to throw the ball a lot. And I don't know if you heard the clip from Darius Slay through the week about like I don't mind the close games because it's maybe not nearly as much like first down, second down, third. Every down is a passing down when teams are down. If they get up early and they're up 13, they're up 17, they're up 20, teams really don't have a choice but to drop back and throw the ball. And that problem of getting up early puts the Eagles defense in a huge position of advantage because their young defensive line has been anything but incredible through these first two games, especially the young kids.
Yeah, and I thought the linebackers did a much better job against the Vikings than they did against the Patriots. I thought Zach Cunningham had a pretty good game stopping the run. I thought that Nicholas Morrow did a good job filling in for Nakobe Dean. And Christian Ellis, I mean, he didn't play a whole lot. I mean, I like him as well as a backup. He's a very good special teams player. So, yeah, I thought the front seven for the Eagles, I mean, the one guy on their defense, Don, that really hasn't done anything yet has been Hassan Reddick. I know he's coming back from from thumb surgery.
Yeah.
But also, I think this Monday's game, I mean, do you want to transition over to the Monday night game?
Yeah, sure. Listen, I just want to give DeAndre Swift his flowers. That dude balled out on
Yeah, he had the
on Thursday
most
night.
rushing yards in a game. He had the most rushing yards in a game by an Eagle since LaShawn McCoy in the Snow Bowl.
Which is incredible, right? But like you now see, right? And you heard Sirianni talk about riding a hot hand. I think they ride him. He essentially elevates. He gets he Wally pips everybody else and elevates himself into that number one running back role. But I think you have the other horses behind him that are guys that can be productive. I just loved what I saw. I loved that it was, that was his game. I'm sure there's going to be other times where you have the Pittsburgh game last year where A.J. Brown goes 100 plus and 3 touchdowns. You have, Devontae Smith is going to have a 152 touchdown game. They're all going to have these games, especially these games early on that are every game. I feel like before the bye, when you look at the schedule now, every game before the bye is a winnable game. They could very easily go into the bye having not lost a game.
Yeah, I agree. I think next Sunday's game against the Commanders is going to be a it's going to have a different feel to it than when we see with games against the Washington football team, Commanders.
You think?
Game. Yeah, because the Eagles should have that game circled because remember last year when they barely lost that game, that was the one that was their first loss last year, and the Commanders acted like they won the Super Bowl, and Taylor Heineke did that BS maneuver where he faked taking a knee so he can get hit to draw a penalty.
Yeah.
And trust me, you don't think that team's got that scheduled? Like, oh, you guys are talking a lot of trash, huh? All right, we'll see what's going to happen to you guys now.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that could end up being a real statement game for them early on in the season to really kind of and remember when they played them at home early, right? That was the game they sacked Wentz 8, 9 times, something like that last year.
Oh, and the owner of the Sixers owns the Commanders, and we all hate him. So now it's even better.
Right. That's an asset control piece, right? I'm going to own as many franchises as I can. I think that ownership group has maybe 4 or 5 between. They've got the Sixers, the Devils, the Commanders. They've got a couple EPL teams. So, yeah, there's a lot to bookmark for that game. But in terms of their matchup, coming up on Monday night, they're going to go down to the Bucs, and I'm sure we all remember the last time they went down and played in Tampa. That playoff game, Jalen Hurts' first playoff game, Nick Sirianni's first playoff game as a head coach. That was ugly. And we know that this team has come a very, very long way since then. But the first thing I want to ask you is like, is there a part of you that is interested in how the Bucks defense approaches this game? Because Todd Bowles is a guy who's been around the NFL for a really long time. He's a guy who always schemes and crafts defenses really well. And the last time they played, they really devised a good attack against a young Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, listen, like they know Jalen Hurts likes to run. I mean, you kind of saw. A lot of these scrambling quarterbacks, a lot of these teams that run like Tampa 2, what they like to do is sit their corners at the line of scrimmage. So if the quarterback wants to run to the outside to try and pick up yards, they'll have someone at least there to push them out of bounds or have linebackers cover the flat to force them to throw. I mean, if Tampa Bay thinks that Jalen Hurts is the same quarterback he was that played them in that playoff game, they're in trouble because you're going to have to defend him differently Monday night than you would have in that postseason game.
100%. And the quarterback position on Tampa is very different, right? You were talking about facing a Tom Brady-led Bucks team, right? And now you're talking about Baker Mayfield, who has looked better than I thought he would early on in the season. But Baker Mayfield he can be who we think he is.
Yeah, the Eagles, it's interesting. So the last Eagle quarterback to win 2 straight games or to win 2 games in Tampa Bay as the Eagles starting quarterback is Nick Foles in 2012 and 2013. Yeah, so it's just the Eagles haven't played a lot in Tampa Bay. Usually they play them once every 3 years for some reason. Their schedules never link up a whole lot.
Right.
So in terms of trends, I mean, I don't really know there's not like a big trend. Like the Eagles have never lost at home versus the Steelers, and that both those teams are close to 100 years old, right? Gotcha. The thing with Baker is he's much better. He's got much more time to throw. He has good receivers. The offensive coordinator for Tampa Bay was the quarterback's coach for the Seattle Seahawks last year. Okay. So he fixed Geno, and now he's fixing Baker. So I don't think this Tampa team is some sort of cupcake team that they're going to play. It looked like one 5 months ago. Mm-hmm. However, like this is a game the Eagles just need to win. Like if you want to win the Super Bowl, if you have Super Bowl aspirations, like Tampa's probably like a 8, 9, 10 win. They're basically like Seattle last year, right? Like defensively, they have a good secondary. They're banged up Monday though. They don't like their pass rush. Like I don't think they have enough pass rush to really threaten a team like the Eagles.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like I know they were harassing Justin Fields, but Justin Fields looks like absolute dog water right now. So
my God.
So I don't really know how much credence and they literally beat the tar out of Kirk Cousins, and the Eagles also beat the tar out of Kirk Cousins too.
Right.
So this is obviously like this is the biggest test they're gonna have all season. Like it's most likely that this is the toughest team that Tampa Bay is gonna play all season.
Yeah, because that division is terrible, right? When you're talking about the Bucks, the Saints.
Oh my God, yeah. Like honestly, I think the Tampa team with Baker, I'm not a big Todd Bowles guy. I think they're the best team of the 3 2-0 teams in the NFC South.
Okay.
I think they're better than the Saints because their offense looks like horrific without Alvin Kamara. And I don't trust Desmond. I trust Baker Mayfield more than I trust Desmond Ridder. Like Atlanta 100%. Doesn't know how to get Kyle Pitts or Drake London the ball. Like that's just, to me, like come on. Like Tampa has done a very good job getting Mike Evans involved, getting Chris Godwin involved. I mean, their issue, what could have really hurt Tampa, what could hurt them in this game is if the Eagles force them to get one-dimensional with Baker. I mean, Baker has shown he's throwing 40 to 50 passes. He makes bad decisions with the ball.
Yeah, I think that's if it's me and I'm Sean Desai, that's my game plan, right? I am going to mush rush and keep Baker Mayfield in the pocket as long as I possibly can. Put them in long distance situations to have to throw the ball a lot, where I think that's where that young pass rush comes in, right? You get pressure on him, you get stops on first down, you get, tackles for loss, you put them in 2nd and 12, 3rd and 12, 3rd and 13, right? You get them in those positions where they really don't have another option but to throw. And then you have the defensive backfield to be able to back that up. When you talk about, matching guys like Mike Evans, you're going to match up with guys like Mike Evans and Chris Godwin with guys like Darius Slay and Bradbury. You're getting those guys back healthy. You're going to get Blankenship back. You're getting these guys in a position where you can take advantage of that. And then on 3rd and 13, right, I'm looking at guys like, Jordan, the young Georgia Bulldogs, right? The Jordan Davises and the Jalen Carters. Those guys have been phenomenal in terms of getting the pass rush. And Jalen Carter looks every bit of an animal within 2 games. I mean, he's given me Aaron Donald Fields like way, way early, where he just was able to just wreck a game and just dominate the ball. But I think that game plan,
I would say Eagles history. Jerome Brown. I mean, I don't.
Clyde Simmons like that.
Like I would say, like with Dick Vermeil compared him to Reggie White.
Jesus Christmas!
Like he's never seen a guy that early, that dominant so quickly for like an Eagles player. I would say that they know what they're doing with their defensive line. Like the defensive line, they're going to be their toughest test, I think, though, because the Buccaneers' offensive line has been pretty good. The first 2 games, Baker Mayfield's been sacked 1 time. That I think that I'm also noticing the betting public too, as well. I would say there's a lot of money people are taking Tampa, getting the points originally. The line's gone down.
I was going to say, what's the line right now?
So the line, I'm going to tell you how it opened up, and then I'll just show you like what the betting public has been doing. The line opened at 6.5. It's dropped to 4.5, and now it's 50-50 split on the spread.
It's a pick'em?
It's not a pick'em. It's just the spread is.
Oh, where the money? I got you. Okay.
Yeah, so the money's even, which Vegas probably wants because they're gonna, they want this game. So the Vegas wants the game to fall. Let's just see the point difference here. It was what 6.5, now 5.5. They want this game to be Eagles to win by 5.
Oh yeah, this is
That'll wipe out so much stuff. People.
This is like a 32-28 kind of like somewhere in that like. I want it to be like so and we'll talk about the betting thing, but remind me to talk about the field goal late with the what was it, the Rams? That Rams
I joked. I said, does Sean McVay owe someone money and he had to go do that? Because he said it was, it's the tiebreaker. We get more points. It's going to help us in our tiebreaker. And I'm like, yeah, sure. Right. Because I've never seen that before in a game.
I'm sure everybody up on Fifth Avenue is like, that was like, all right, red alert. We got to go look into emails and phone calls. And
I think they probably said to him, they're like, dude, don't do that again. Like warning.
Right.
Like pull, yeah, right. Like, because he was like, it was like 2 seconds left. And most of the time you try to make a shot at the end zone. Like, why wouldn't you? If you're worried about the tiebreaker, why wouldn't you try to score a touchdown? Because if you're worried about tiebreakers and points, why not try to take a shot at the end zone and then get more points for a tiebreaker?
Right. Yeah, you're not wrong. Yeah. So, I mean, I think so. Offensive game plan. How are you attacking this Bucs defense?
I would say, honestly, They got to work. The Eagles have not worked the middle of the field at all through the first 2 games,
Yeah.
like at all. And I would say, especially with Devin White possibly not playing in this game, I would say I would attack the middle of the field, and I would get. I'm sure a lot of this is like sound like a broken record. Get Dallas Goedert more involved, other than screen passes and like short 5-yard out routes. Like get him over the middle of the field where there's no one around him, catches the ball, and you're going to force a cornerback to have to make an open field tackle on him.
Yeah. No, I like that. You get him, I think, if you can work the seams, right? If you can get, AJ Brown and Devontae Smith and kind of drive the corner and safety deep, and then you run Goddard on an out and in route where he fakes that out route towards the sideline and then cuts back down the seam, you could leave the middle of that field wide open. It could be a big game for him. But I think for me, you rely on you rely on the best part of your team, and I think for them, they need really good protection from the offensive line. You give Jalen Hurts the pocket to throw the ball. I think him being able to distribute, I think this is a game where you see a really good distribution of the ball. I think you see Goddard and Smith and Brown, and you get everybody the ball. That way, there really is no way to attack you because, you don't want to get yourself in a position where you're really driving it home on a predictable pattern what you're going to do. So I look at, I'm looking at this offensive line to be really the key to, if they're going to establish the run, they've got the horses to do it. But if they have to come back, if they have to step back and protect, Jalen Hurts, I think they're the guys that I'm looking at. And then I'm looking for I'm looking in the trenches. I need the defensive line to get pressure on Baker Mayfield and really put him in a position to get back to doing what he does well, which is turn the ball over.
Yeah, I think the big matchup, I think, for this game for the Eagles, it's going to be Darius Slay on Mike Evans. I noticed, Darius, a lot of people said, oh, well, look at Justin Jefferson. He had a big game. I mean, they just moved Justin Jefferson all around the formation.
Yeah.
Like, come on. And you saw in that game, I counted at least 7 times where Mario Goodrich or Josh Jobe would line up on the wrong side of the field, and Darius had to grab him and then point and say, no, you have to go to the other side. You're lined up in the wrong spot, my man. You got to get over there. And look, that's their big thing about them having rest. That's just more time for those two guys to prepare, because it's kind of hard to prepare 3 days before a game where you're expected to basically start the game.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think it's so give me a prediction and give me a key play.
I think a key play, I'm going to say Eagles 28, Buccaneers 23. Key play, I'm going to say I'm going to say Josh Sweat's going to scoop and score a fumble recovery off a sack for a touchdown.
I like the way you're thinking, because I was thinking so for me, I thought like 24-10, 24-13, maybe a little bit bigger of a gap. But I thought if there's a pick six late where the Bucs are really trying to just throw the ball to kind of move the ball down the field, and either Slay or Bradbury or somebody jumps in front of the ball and just takes it back. I think that's a place where they can really just separate themselves late in the game and take it from maybe a 1-score to a 2-score game, go up 10 or 11. That's where that's kind of where I'm looking at with this, but I'm really looking at the defense to really assert themselves in this game.
Yeah, I do feel like a lot of people have kind of maligned the defense. I think it's just Philadelphia. We just malign every defense.
Yes,
pretty much.
Listen,
I thought the first game, the defense was the reason that they won. The second game, they got turnovers gave the Eagles extra offense, extra possessions. Is what ultimately won them the game. But they gave up a bunch of points, playing prevent near the end of the game. The Vikings, I think they just need a game to just go out there and load up on get some sacks, force some more turnovers, and I guess try to get that like Jonathan Gannon, like we don't play well against good quarterbacks, or like we just don't shut people out, or we don't put up like just kind of get that stench out of there.
Right.
I mean, yeah, Don, I just think, I want to see them just play really well. This Bucs defense is pretty good. Their big issue, though, they don't generate enough consistent pass rush. And I just looked at their depth chart. They remind me a lot of like the 2021 Eagles, where, hey, if these guys are all healthy, they're going to win games. But if guys start getting banged up, they're going to be in trouble.
Yeah, you had mentioned earlier, right? Devin White's going to be out. Vita Vea and Kalijah Kancey are both questionable. Or Kalijah Kancey's out. Vita Vea is questionable. Jonathan Davis is questionable. They have a lot of guys that are questionable to play. And I think those are places where you take advantage of that.
And the Eagles will be missing Quez Watkins and Boston Scott. And I think it would have been nice if Quez Watkins could play in this game. But now that Kenny Gainwell is going to be back, I mean, you got two solid running backs still.
Yeah.
With Swift and Gainwell. And look, the guy they just picked up in the offseason, named Olamide Zaccheaus. The guy who was a starter with the Falcons last year.
Yeah.
He hasn't really done anything.
No.
The first 2 weeks.
Yeah, they've talked about him this week about he's a guy that they're expecting to be able to just step in. And the thing that I would rely on with him, right? He's a veteran guy. He's a good route runner. So for me, as long as you're not fucking anything up, like if you're the third wide receiver option and you're essentially on this offense, like the sixth option, like if you're the sixth option behind AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, DeAndre Swift, Jalen Hurts. If you're the sixth guy, as long as you're catching the ball and not turning the ball over, those are all positives for me.
Yeah, I would just I know the Eagles had a lot of problems on third and short where it was too far enough to really run the ball. I want to see Zaccheaus catch a couple first downs on third down and just keep moving the chains because
just be that guy that sits in space.
Yeah, I feel like this offense would really benefit from having a receiver that could work the short part of the field and just be a good safety valve for Jalen Hurts to just throw to.
Okay.
If everyone's covered.
Like a Wes Welker-ish.
Yeah, I was going to even say Chase and Avant.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Not even thinking a guy who can catch 115 passes. I just want a guy that can just, be a good third down guy.
I appreciate it. But listen, we're going to take a commercial break. On the back end of the commercial, you're going to hear some fantasy advice from Coach Trav at Losing Sucks. And then on the back end, we'll talk more around the NFL. So we'll see you on the back end.
Von C. Brewing Company is a 20-barrel, 16,000-square-foot microbrewery with a 2,500-square-foot tasting room, including a spacious outside beer garden in Norristown, PA, in the heart of Montgomery County. The Von C. family is part of the family that started C. Schmidt and Son Brewing in 1860. Stop in Wednesday through Sunday and taste a variety of draft and 16-ounce cans of originally brewed beer and tell them the Drunk on Broad crew sent you. Von C. Brewing is located at 1210 Stenbridge Street, Suite 300 in Norristown. Cheers.
Team Clicks are the only glasses for real sports fans. With interchangeable arms, you can support all of your favorite teams, or even make and create custom options as well. These die-hard sports fans have realized that sports fans needed something other than face paint to show their love and passion for their teams. Go to teamclicks.com/DOB and show your love for your hometown team.
And La Torrent's curated collection of men's and women's watches is a perfect investment that lasts for years to come and fits perfectly with your every outfit and style. Our range of classic watches aren't just a great perfect formal and casual accessory, but a time machine that takes you back to memories. Explore our collection of timeless watches that can reflect your taste, personality, and personal style. Our exclusive collection of carefully curated, affordable luxury watches is what you need to make a personalized style statement. You can take pride in your prized possession, handing it over to the next generations as your most loved asset that they can also own and display with the same pride. These high-quality pieces stand the test of time, giving exceptional value and return on your investment. Go to la-touraine.com and use code DOB at checkout and get 10% off.
If you're looking for unique sports apparel, check out Streaker Sports. They've dug deep into the archives and have brought back some incredible defunct team logos and have even created entire defunct league collections. They also have collections paying homage to sports culture, including the Miracle on Ice, Slap Shot, Caddyshack, the Mighty Ducks, and even have a license with Wiffle Ball and USA Hockey. Only for Drunk on Broad listeners, use code BROAD at checkout to get 10% off anything at streakersports.com. Again, that's 10% off anything at streakersports.com with discount code BROAD.
Sucks. Another season of fantasy football is upon us. We are actually a couple weeks in now, a little delay on the start here, but I'm bringing you some information headed into week 3. Hopefully you're not 0-2. If you are, let's crawl out of it. The Eagles are 2-0. The Cowboys are 2-0. They are headed for a clash course in the division. It should be fun. I'll get to the Dallas defense here in a little bit. Let's jump into some fantasy football. It's been brutal on the injury front so far, especially this week with Nick Chubb. It's also been brutal on the stud quarterbacks, your Lamar Jackson, Justin Fields, Joe Burrow crew. Now Joe Burrow with the calf injury. It's been rough. You have to weather the storm. You drafted these guys to perform for you. It will get better. Brighter days are ahead. But yeah, they've struggled out of the gate. You've probably lost some matchups if you went heavy on Lamar, Fields, and Burrow. Time to turn it around. Let's bring them some good luck headed into week 3. Moving on, the Rams offense is much better than we ever thought it was going to be this year after what we saw last year. I know they didn't have Stafford for a lot of last year. So, I don't know. There wasn't a whole lot to really go off of what to expect from them right now. Big surprises for them, though. Puka Nacua has become the name in fantasy football. I hope that you were able to get a share off waivers in some of your leagues. I think he continues to do this at least until Cooper Kupp comes back. Maybe even when Cooper Kupp is there, drawing attention. We could see a Robert Woods. I know it's cliche, but we could see a 15 to 20 weekly ranking for Puka the rest of the way. Tutu Atwell has been balling out as well. Kyron Williams, Stafford. Now with Akers gone, these two guys are very solid weekly plays until further notice. Again, we'll see what happens when Cooper Kupp comes back, but I don't think it's going to hurt these weapons too much. I think it helps the offense in general to have an elite player step back in. Maybe it hurts Atwell and Puka's targets, but these are guys that can find openings, and Stafford is on fire right now. So the mid-round running backs are balling through 2 weeks. Brian Robinson with a running back 1 overall week last week. Did not see that coming. David Montgomery has been really solid. Although banged up now, probably will miss a week or two. DeAndre Swift, obviously as recent as last week. But man, they have something that could create a monster in that backfield. I think DeAndre Swift showed that should be his role. I don't know how Philly fans feel about Gainwell. I'm sure that they're high on everybody that steps in the backfield. Even Boston Scott has a yards per carry over 8, I think. But it should be Swift who gets the 15 to 20 touch loads when they lean on the run, which they should because nobody can stop that run. Rachaad White, on and on. These mid-level running backs are starting to catch fire, starting to have real value. It's looking like the elite wide receivers other than Christian McCaffrey. I think that was the play for the most part. What we've seen is the elite guys. Jamar Chase, he'll come around, but Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb, Diggs, Devontae Adams, these guys are delivering at a high level. So they're showing that they were worth those picks. Looking ahead to week 3 now, let's get into some quick stardom sit-ems and then wrap this sucker up. All Vikings weapons are on the stardom list. The Chargers defense has been horrific at stopping literally anything so far this year. Kirk and the 4 sons is what I'm calling them right now. Jefferson, Hawkinson, Addison, Madison. Get them all in there with confidence. Don't hesitate on Alexander Madison. I think he has a big week 3 bounce back. Addison's got a touchdown in both. Hawkinson's looking like he's going to challenge Kelsey for tight end 1 overall. George Pickens, pleasant surprise on Monday night. I have not been a Pickens believer, but with no Deontay Johnson and a subpar Najee so far, Pickens is getting the targets now, and it only takes one play to make a day for George Pickens owners. If he's getting 8 to 10 targets, you get 2, maybe 3 of those plays. He's a very valuable asset right now. Sam Laporta looks like the real deal. I wish I had more dynasty shares of him. 11 targets through 2 weeks for a rookie is really nice, and I think we see him make that jump into the top 5 tight end group. If I had to pick between Laporta and Goddard right now, I would go with Laporta. It happens quick. He could fall from grace, but right now he looks like a very involved part of that offense, and he looks like he's been there for 3 years. So, before he has the 75-yard touchdown or 2 touchdown game, it's worth throwing out an offer. If you don't have one of Kelsey, Andrews, Hawkinson, I would be pivoting to Laporta, maybe Dalton Kincaid. These young guys are really going to start to come on. A couple of backup running backs, I think, have really nice days in week 3, especially for those that lost Saquon Barkley, Nick Chubb, David Montgomery. We're going to go with Josh Kelly. Eckler is still not practicing. Even if he plays, I think Kelly gets at least half of the workload. Jaylen Warren, Najee Harris sucks. Jaylen Warren has pop. Let's get him in there as a flex. Gus Edwards now, with Justice Hill likely to miss week 3 with turf toe. Gus Edwards becomes a very interesting play. He is definitely flex worthy, maybe even RB2 worthy against I believe the Colts. Stardom Situm. We are now with the Situms. I'll give you 3 here. Daniel Jones was the QB1 overall last week, but now gets the San Francisco defense. And he has no Saquon Barkley behind him, already ruled out. Go with another option. Don't ride the high of last week. It's going to be ugly for Daniel Jones and the Giants. Number 2, James Conner. It has been really, really good for James Conner so far, both volume and production. But in comes the Dallas defense. I know the Eagles fans are watching Dallas defense closely. They will be all over James Conner this week. If I have Conner, I am selling him now as high as I possibly can, with fear that he can't keep this production up, especially with what his value is going to do after the Dallas game. So if you have Conner, look to sell for an equal lateral move. Maybe you need a receiver. Maybe you turn him into Rashad White and something small. But James Conner, I think, is going to start to slow it down. Bears running backs, I think this is a Justin Fields rushing frenzy this week. This is going to hurt the running backs big time. It's just a gut call based on what we've seen. I've seen a lot of reports, interviews, Justin Fields saying, we're kind of throwing out the game plan. I'm going to be me. I'm going to run. I'm going to do what I do. That hurts Chicago running backs quite a bit. So I would pivot away from your Herberts, Roshan Johnsons, if possible. Some buy low candidates. Now, Justin Fields, we just mentioned him. He's a buy low for me. We just saw his floor. Apparently, he's played the worst 2 games of any quarterback in the history of the league. I think this is overblown. I don't think Justin Fields is going to be what we've seen the first 2 weeks. I really think he starts to flip a switch like he did last year. From week 5 on last year, he was a top 5 quarterback. So, Justin Fields, buy low now. Josh Jacobs has been really quiet out of the gate, but the volume is there. Like Connor for Jacobs is somebody you could do. Joe Mixon, DK Metcalf, Jalen Waddle, DJ Moore. Those are guys that have been quiet that I think start to really get going here. Buy low while you can. Once again, I'm Travis over at Losing Sucks on Twitter. Our website is losingsucksfantasy.com. We have a show Wednesday nights, and then Thursday nights now we do immediately post-game after the Thursday night game for a 30-minute quick show. Come say hi. Come ask us questions. If you have tough trade questions, we love those. We'll help you figure out how to get the trade done and start sit questions every week. Appreciate the time. Good luck. Go Birds.
All right, we're back. What do you think? What do you got? So the fantasy advice from the guys at Losing Sucks, right? They're always if you have start 'em, sit 'em stuff, hit them up on Twitter or X or whatever it's called at this point. But they're
I would. Yeah, I thought his advice on the Chargers was legit. I mean, I think that Vikings Chargers game is going to be a high scoring affair, which is good for fantasy. Which is not own either one of their defenses, obviously.
Right.
The Justin Fields part's interesting. I mean, he's kind of like the butt of everyone's jokes right now. I said buy low, but I also feel like too, like if I had him in fantasy, I wouldn't want to unload him yet. Like I would say, don't panic sell him. I saw someone. I'm going to pull up a trade someone made in one of my leagues.
Okay.
With Justin Fields. They got, we vetoed it. This person was trying to take advantage of this person for Justin Fields. Antonio Gibson for Justin Fields immediately got vetoed.
Jesus Christmas. Like, oh God, that kind of stuff just listen, and I'm a guy who owns in one of my dynasty leagues, Austin Eckler. Right. And I was like, oh God, like when that game originally, when I saw it early on, I'm like, that could be a game where you could see a lot of points scored. But now, him being out, trying to, but I feel like anybody in that game is a play. Right. And I love the perspective with the Vikings too. Right. You got guys that are just they might not be having a great record. But those guys, you don't necessarily have to have a great record to put up a shit ton of fantasy points.
No. And I think that if you're going to see like a 41-38 game between the Vikings and the Chargers.
Yeah.
You're going to, likely if you have Jay Jettas, I have Jordan Addison in one of my leagues. I haven't really played him yet, but as a rookie wide receiver, he's starting to really catch on. The Chargers, I picked up Josh Kelly. He sucked last week against the Titans, but the Titans are a scrappy team. Also found out, I think this is a good segue for us maybe giving some last-minute betting advice with the lines.
All right.
I have a lot of trends that if you want to go over it, do you want to just highlight each game real quick?
Yeah, let's talk about it.
Okay.
Where do you want to start?
Let's start with the Vikings and the Chargers. So I thought about this. Now, I don't know if this is really a trend, but this is just kind of my takeaway from the game. I was reading that the Vikings, if you saw what the Vikings did this offseason, they unloaded a ton of veterans. And they really didn't go out and bring in anyone of equal value to replace them. They let go of Eric Kendricks, Dalvin Cook, Adam Thielen. They let go of, I think, Everson Griffin as well. They let go of a lot of just guys that played a lot of games for them over the last several years. They just let them go. And the GM, low key, just wants to get rid of Kirk Cousins, their GM, their new GM. I think the owner loves Kirk Cousins. The GM just he just is mid. We're not going to win a Super Bowl with them. So let's just get a young guy that we could build with. And I feel like they're not going to be terribly upset, at least their front office, if they lose this game. The Chargers, on the other hand, are not in that position. You pay Justin Herbert all that money.
Yeah.
To not go 0-3.
Right. Yeah, and Brandon Staley is a guy that it boggles my mind how you could have the talent that you have on that team and not be able to coach it up. It just at every turn seems to make a wrong decision. This kind of game, it could be offensively ugly because it could just be out of hand really, really early because the defenses are just going to they're just going to trade touchdowns. I feel like all day long.
Yeah, the one thing though, I like the Chargers on the road. They were 1.5 point underdogs at the time of I saw the consensus line. So it really depends on who you're using. I mean, it's Minnesota 1.5 still.
Okay.
I'm going to refresh my page here just so it's still 1.5.
All right.
Minnesota. I like the Chargers. The Vikings have turned over 7 times in the first 2 games. And I mean, to me, it's like if you're a sloppy football team like they are, they'll put up points, but they just hand the ball off. You're not going to win. Like if the Chargers just protect the ball and let Minnesota just keep screwing up, you'll come. It's a classic stat. Teams that turn the ball over, the team that wins the turnover battle wins the game 75 to 80% of the time.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. Who's next on the docket? What do you got next?
I got here Titans at Browns. A lot of people are loaded up on the Titans, but the Titans are the best underdog team in the NFL the past 3 years. They cover or win outright every game they're listed as an underdog. I think like 75 to 80% of the time, and they're 3.5 point underdogs. And if you watch the Steelers and the Browns play this past Monday, Deshaun Watson, man, he looks cooked. He is.
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't seen a quarterback just lose it as fast as someone's at his age since like Dante Culpepper. Like he is just.
Yeah, it looks bad, and it's just another name to add to the list of failed Browns quarterbacks, and they're going to be drowning in that contract. It's just it's going to be bad for Browns, right? And then the injury with Nick Chubb, right? The injury, God, that's the second horrific knee injury. If you remember that knee injury, he has almost the identical knee injury playing at Georgia.
I just read last night that he tore his MCL and damaged his ACL, but they said that there's a strong possibility he will be ready to play week 1 next year. Like he just avoided having a career-ending knee injury.
It looked like his bottom half of his leg was completely separated from the top half at one point in that play.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, and I just find it odd. They were like, we're not going to show this play. This is too disgusting. And when Damar Hamlin died, they showed it 45,000 times.
Yeah. I think they might have learned them. They might have learned.
Yeah, I think they probably learned their lesson, probably from sponsors. Like, yeah, we don't want to be associated with watching someone dying or suffering a horrific knee injury.
Yeah. All right, who's next?
Got Texans at Jaguars. I know a lot of people are taking the Jaguars here because they're 8.5 point favorites. Last I checked, the Jags are 2-8 at home the past 10 years versus the Texans. Not saying the Jags are going to lose this game, but I'm just saying as Eagles fans, when Doug Pearson is laying a lot of points, he just doesn't cover spreads. I mean, I remember 2018 and 2019 when they were big favorites, they would always struggle or outright just lose. The Dolphin game against Ryan Fitzpatrick, I think, comes to mind as a game where they were heavy favorites and against an awful Dolphins team, and they somehow blow the game.
Yeah, the hard part for me with that game is like the Texans are just they're very, very young. They're very inexperienced. CJ Stroud has had some impressive moments, not super consistent, but I think that has to deal more with the team that's around him than it does him.
Yeah, and Don, I just think that the Texans have a lot more talent than people realize. Like I know we're talking about fantasy. Like I picked up Tank Dell. Nico Collins has been amazing. If you drafted Nico Collins, if you have Nico Collins and like Puka on your team right now, you should be 2-0.
Yeah, and those guys are guys that like you didn't even have to draft. You could have picked those guys up as free agents, or like that was in like the last 2 picks of your draft.
Yeah, exactly. So I like the Texans covering the 8.5.
Okay.
Next game, Patriots at Jets. Yeah, Bill Belichick just flat out owns the Jets. They're 8-2 their past 10 years in the Meadowlands versus the Jets.
Yeah,
I wrote down my
and
notes. Zach Wilson sees ghosts versus Belichick's defenses. I just don't
imagine
think
those
he's.
guys.
I
Yeah,
really don't think he's just going to magically just figure it out this week. I know
no, not at
they're
all.
trying to talk about him like he's changed. He played the same way like he plays against everyone else against Dallas. So I don't really
Yeah,
see that
yeah. I don't, I
changing.
don't, I don't see Zach Wilson. That to me seems like it. I'm actually more surprised that the Jets are just like, no, we're just gonna with the team that they built around Aaron Rodgers. It surprises me that they don't go out and make a move for, you know, like a guy that you had mentioned that the Vikings might be trying to get rid of, like trading for Kirk Cousins, trading for a Matthew Stafford, trading for an established veteran on a
I
team
mean,
that
if
might
the
not be
Titans go on a
built.
big losing streak, like the next 4 or 5 weeks, like
Tannehill.
Tannehill makes a logical guy to trade because
Yeah,
they have
absolutely.
Will Levis and Malik Willis, and it's like, hey, let's see what these guys can do. Because like, what's the point of just having Tannehill just rot on your bench?
Yeah.
Maybe get a draft pick for him at least.
Yeah. I
The
think
funny thing about
that's
the Jets is they have that guy that we all hate, we all made fun of. The guy who coached the head coach for the Broncos, Nathaniel Hackett, is their offensive coordinator.
yeah.
Don, you ever notice these teams hire these guys who coach like Hall of Fame established players, and once they bring them in, they look like they have no clue what they're doing? That's Nathaniel
Yeah.
Hackett. So yeah, I'm taking the
Yeah.
Patriots. I don't. The Jets got to prove they can beat New England if I'm going to pick them, even though they're 2.5 point dogs at home.
Gotcha. I like that. Yeah,
Right?
I don't trust Zach Wilson at all.
Saints at Packers. Packers are 1.5 point favorites. I'm taking the Packers. The friggin' Saints offense with Derek Carr just looks like absolute dog water. They are They look so boring to watch. And I really like.
It's the
If you
truth.
watch Jordan Love the last 2 weeks, he looks pretty good.
I'll tell you what. I'm not convinced that he's the guy, but I'm impressed for it to be the start of his career. He seems like a guy that is poised. He seems like a guy who's confident to make decisions in the pocket. And I know there are going to be a lot of bumps with him, but they look like they got a guy that can lead them to win a division, especially in that division.
All right, now this is where I have like my upset alert or like good covers.
Ooh,
So
okay.
Broncos at Dolphins. The Dolphins are 6.5 point favorites. There's a couple things go against the Dolphins in this game. Number one, Sean Payton as an underdog in his career has a 6.615 winning percentage. That's not covering the spread. Outright winning as an underdog. That's 0.615 winning percentage in his career.
Wow. Okay.
Denver came close to winning the last 2 weeks. I know they were favorites, but they're a big underdog today in Miami. And another thing that's hurting the Dolphins, two things going against the Dolphins. One, this is a possible look-ahead game because they're playing the Bills next week. Number two, no Jalen Waddle.
Yeah. Yeah, all eyes on Tyreek Hill.
Yes. And they have Patrick Surtain II. He's a very, obviously, elite-level corner.
Mm-hmm.
I think he could maybe keep Tyreek Hill at least not going off for 250 receiving yards.
I like that.
It feels like he does. So I'm taking the Broncos to cover. Next game, Bills at Commanders. I like the Commanders. Whenever you get these like slop games and rain, I think it neutralizes speed. And the Bills, they're outmatched on both sides of the ball, offensive and defensive line versus the Commanders. Like I'm not the Bills. They blew out the Raiders, but like I mean, Don, are you impressed by? Like,
Listen,
I mean, the Raiders blow. Like, I'm
the Raiders are bad. Jimmy Garoppolo looks every bit of what anybody thought he might be because he looks very disappointing early. The Bills, to me, are on a prove it year, right? They're going to have to prove it week after week after week because they've gotten to the point where they're getting to those deep playoff runs. They're just not able to finish it early or not able to finish it late in the season.
Yeah, I just think that kind of like what the video we just played, Brian Robinson played really well last week. They're going to feed him the ball a lot this week. Mm-hmm. I mean, they got good receivers, the Commanders. Like, this isn't like an easy, like this. A lot of people are just loading up on the Bills because I think the Bills are a team everyone likes to pick. to cover big spreads. But the Bills last year were 2-3 in covering the spread of points, 9 points or more last year. They were 2-3 against the spread.
Mm-hmm.
So, and they're laying big points on the road. I like the Commanders in this game to
All
cover as well. And I think in the Dolphins or the Commanders, Dolphins or Bills games, I think one of them's going to outright lose. I'm going to call that today as an upset.
Okay.
Right, Falcons at Detroit. A lot of people are loading up on the Falcons because they're 2-0, and I think people just hate the Lions because the coach is a total meathead, and they were talking a lot of trash. And I like the Lions today against the Falcons. I really just
so do I.
I do not trust like Desmond Ridder.
Not at all.
On the road, I don't trust him at all. Like, don't you kind of like Don? Don't you feel like he's due to throw like 4 picks?
Yeah, especially with this defense, I feel like they're going to get a lot of they could get a lot of pressure on him. And that 2-0 record for the Falcons is a false narrative. I feel like if you've watched them play, you've seen them look vulnerable multiple times in both games. And I think this is a game where the Lions really, let a guy like Aiden Hutchinson. It wouldn't surprise me if he has like a multiple sack game. Wouldn't surprise me, if they're turning the ball over, fumbles, interceptions. The Falcons are just I don't trust any team in the NFC South at this point.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
Okay. Next game, Colts at Ravens. Ravens are 8.5-point favorites because the Colts are without Anthony Richardson. I like the Colts to cover this game. This is going to be another game affected by the rain. The other one being the Commanders game. I know Minshew is a bit of a wild card here, but he looked really good coming off the bench versus the Texans. He went 17 for 21, 171 yards and a touchdown coming off the bench. Ravens are without like 7 starting players today, and they're laying 8.5 points.
Okay.
That's not good. Like, I'm sorry.
It's not
like,
good.
that is not good. I kind of like the Colts to kind of cover this game.
Okay. So my Gardner Minshew take is more like he does better in those situations where he's forced into play in the middle of a game. I don't trust him starting the game. So I feel like you might be right. This might be a Ravens win, but a Colts cover.
Like, I think it's going to be like the Cowboy game last year where it's like he's going to be like throwing for a lot of yards, but he's going to commit stupid turnovers and they're going to lose by 3.
Yeah, listen, if you're in like a super flex league and you need a second quarterback, he might be a guy you might pick up because he could be a guy that potentially could score a lot of points.
Yeah, if you're like a 2 quarterback team league, like you just he wouldn't be a bad play today. Next game. Panthers at Seahawks.
Okay.
Seattle, they're laying 5.5 at home. I have this weird feeling. I have this weird feeling because the Panthers look like total garbage the first 2 weeks. I have a feeling now Andy Dalton's going to start. They're going to be much better. Because Bryce Young just looked totally overmatched with, I don't know if you saw him like lining up under center wrong on the sneak. He tried to do the Jalen Hurts, sneak play.
I did.
Yeah, something about Andy Dalton about like covering as an underdog. I think he just does it. Like we all joke about him being like mid, and he's not a starting quarterback.
Right.
I think this is going to be a close game because Seattle has a lot of injuries heading into this game. DK Metcalf's questionable.
Okay.
For some reason, they don't want to get Jackson Smith and Jigba involved in the offense. They kind of are now forced to.
Which makes no sense at all.
Yeah, like now that he's like might be starting today, they might be forced to get him involved. Defensively, the Seahawks, the Seahawks got boat raced by the Rams week 1. Then they came back against the Lions because the Lions just played stupid football at home. I don't think this team's good enough to be laying 5.5 points to any team, let alone a trash team like the Carolina Panthers. I'm going to take Seattle. No, I'm taking the Panthers.
Okay.
Next game. Cowboys at Cardinals. Cardinals are 12.5-point underdogs at home again. I have a stat for you, Don. I want to share. Go ahead. Teams that score a combined 70 points, which the Cowboys have scored 70 points the last 2 weeks combined, when they have to play on the road the following week, which is what they're doing, They fail to cover the spread about 75% of the time. The Cowboys have lost 3 of their last 4 games in Arizona playing at that stadium.
Wow.
So I think the Cowboys are horrifically banged up right now playing it. I think the Cowboys are going to win the game. I think the Cowboys' approach is going to be, let's just go in there, let's just win. Nobody get hurt, and then we'll just leave. Right. We don't want to screw around with this team. We're going to play this team. And look, the Cardinals are like they remind me like the process era Sixers, where they would like cover big spreads, but they're like, they might be winning accidentally. And they're like, oh God, we need to lose this game because we're tanking. Which is what I think you saw last week with the Cardinals when they played the Giants.
Yeah, that was, I mean, listen, the last time Jonathan Gannon was in charge of a defense in a big game in that stadium, it kind of turned out exactly the same way. So like, but I also, John, I could envision a scenario where Josh Dobbs gets murdered by Micah Parsons multiple times in this game, and it just gets ugly. Like, it could go one of two ways. It could stay close, but I don't know. Something about the Cowboys could end up being like it could be like a blowout city game.
Yeah, I'm not, I agree. It could be. I just think that I just feel like Dak has been really loosey-goosey with the football, has not been punished yet for it. I could see this being a game where the Cowboys get up like 17-0, and then like they just let the Cardinals hang around, and then the Cardinals will like backdoor cover.
Okay.
Because the Cowboys are just like, we're going to sit on this lead, and then, if we win by, like, they don't care if they don't cover the spread. They don't care.
Oh, a win is a win is a win is a win.
They don't care. It's just like, let's just beat this team and get the hell out of here. Because the Cardinals have been 2-0 against the spread. And they're 2-0 against the spread the first 2 weeks against the NFC East with the Commanders and now the Giants. And now they're playing the Cowboys. So I think everyone's like, there's no way they could do it 3 weeks in a row. Well,
gotcha.
Well, yeah, we'll see.
All right, who you got next? We got a couple
next
games
game.
left.
Bears at Chiefs. Chiefs are 12.5-point favorites at home. Yeah, Chiefs are going to boat race this team.
It's going to be ugly.
This is going to be a Travis Kelce game. This is going to be like a Travis Kelce, 15 catches, 100 yards, 2 touchdowns. He's going to do a Taylor Swift dance in the end zone.
His predicted out point for me is 20 plus. Like it could be it could very easily be a 32, 35 point day for Travis Kelce.
Do you remember, like you mentioned last week, how the Raiders got blown out by the Bills because the Bills need to have like we're playing a bad team. We need to flex our muscles. We need to just beat the crap out of this team. Just show everyone that we're not like bad. Or the Chiefs need this game because he could have easily lost versus the Jaguars. They blew a game at home against the Lions week 1 opening night. They need to blow out a team. This is the perfect team to blow out.
Yeah, this is for me the way that the Chiefs season has started. Yeah, they open the season losing the game to the Lions. They get a win last week. But this to me is like a get right game. This is a game where like we work all the kinks out, we get everything right, and it wouldn't surprise me if this kicks off, a 7, 8, 9 game, run for them where they just, kind of run through teams.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed.
What do we got? What do we got left? We got the Raiders, Steelers.
Steelers at Raiders. The Raiders are, I believe the Raiders are they still 2.5-point favorites? This because they're 3-point favorites now. The Raiders at home. Now, I know people are like, oh, that looks fishy because they Steelers beat... Dude, the Steelers' offensive line is... Them and the Giants have the 2 worst offensive lines in pro football. And it's not good when your fans pay money on Cameo to have Hank from Breaking Bad to tell the offensive coordinator to get the F out of our city, you effing blow. Just taunt him. Like, that's not good. Like... I feel like this could be like the game where they score like 10 points and the Raiders win like 14-10, where like they should have easily dropped a bunch of points, but the offensive coordinator is just really bad, and he might like lose his job.
It wouldn't surprise me.
I like the Raiders. I like the Raiders laying the 3.
Right,
we talked about the Eagles. We're going to talk Rams-Bengals. Bengals are 2.5-point underdogs at home, I believe. They're 2.5-point underdogs.
Yeah, Joe Burrow probably not playing.
No, they're 2.5-point favorites. Excuse me. They're 2.5-point favorites at home. Everyone's loading up on the Rams. Yeah, I'm picking the Bengals. The Bengals have to win this game. There's no excuses. Like, you can't start 0-3. You know, I don't even know what your odds are of making the playoffs if you start out 0-3.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing is right that the division is going to end up coming down to them and Baltimore.
And Baltimore beat them already.
Yeah,
so they're already behind.
They've already got the game in hand.
And they lost to the Browns. And if it's a playoff spot, and let's say the Browns, let's say Deshaun Watson gets hurt, they put DTR in there. Let's say DTR looks good, and then they start like winning some close games, and then they have to get into a tiebreaker scenario, right?
Right.
You can't start out 0-3. Like, no. I'm sorry.
And the hard part is right. The trend it's trending in the direction where Joe Burrow doesn't play. And if that's
it is trending that he's not going to play. I saw him; he was practicing this week.
I did see practicing, right? But everything that I'm looking at is like he's still questionable. They're still not sure whether or not they're going to risk. So like for me, from a fantasy perspective, right? I'm going to start Stafford today instead of Joe Burrow this weekend, only because of that questionability. Right. But if he doesn't play, right, the second guy on the depth chart is Jake Browning. So like, it's the kind of thing where like, it's such the injury stuff is such a hard thing to negotiate, but I don't know. I look at this as this could be a lot closer than we think.
Yeah. I think it's going to be a field goal game.
Yeah, it could be like a 17-14, like a 21, like 17 kind of game. I feel like it's going to be close. What do you got on the Birds?
I like the Birds to cover the line dropped. Line dropped down to 4.5. They win by 5. I'm going to take the Birds. I'd like.
Yeah.
How about you?
I do. I think this is a like we were saying earlier, I think this is a 2-score win. I think something in the neighborhood of like a 27-13 kind of thing. I think they're maybe up 6, in the fourth quarter. We talked about earlier the prediction. I think they get some kind of defensive touchdown late. They get some kind of touchdown late to negotiate that the win to 2+ touchdowns. I just like the Birds. I think they, even when they go down to Tampa, I think seeing all the stuff on social media, I think seeing the fans down there, this is going to sound more like a home game, considering all the Philly transplants that live in Florida, all the people that have traveled down with the different sports groups. And I love that about our fan base, that we travel as well as we do. So I think this ends up being, this is going to sound like a home game for the Birds. I think it's going to feel like they're going to start to rattle off some wins and really start to separate themselves. Because even though they've won, they haven't really had like a feel good game, what I would call a rocking chair ride. I think this might be a rocking chair ride for them.
I've heard from other teams' fans, they say they find it amusing when we travel and our team and the Eagles don't play well on the road, and they see them, they'll be cheering their team, and they'll see the Phillies fans legit booing and heckling their own players, like not playing very well. They're like, "Oh my God, you guys are crazy."
Yeah, that's just us.
I guess wrapping things up here, I know people love to do like the in-game bets. I really love AJ Brown anytime touchdown. I love Dallas Goedert over on yards.
Okay.
I like
I'm going to go Jalen Hurts plus 2 touchdowns.
Plus 2 touchdowns. I'd be curious what Kenny Gainwell's over is on rushing yards because I feel like everyone's just going to ignore him. But I feel like they might mix him back in. They're going to go with a 50-50 split in the first half to see who's doing better. And then the second half, whoever's doing better on the ground, the guy's going to get the touches.
Okay. Yeah, if you're doing like a same game parlay, I think that's you could. It's good enough that you could get some good odds. And I think if you can kind of tease it up and down, right? You add in like the Birds money line, maybe that could. And
also to try not to be a homer, if there's guys in the Bucks you want to do overs on, I would do over on Chris Godwin because they like to move him around in the formation, and they're going to get him on Mario Goodrich as much as humanly possible.
Oh, absolutely. I think you could also add Mike if you wanted to add Mike Evans. Mike Evans anytime touchdown. That would be a guy because the offensive weapons on the Bucks are not as plentiful as you might think. So I think, Baker Mayfield trying to get him the ball is probably
they really just lack depth. Like if Mike Evans and Chris Godwin got banged up, like Baker Mayfield has literally no one to throw to.
Nobody. So listen, on that note, John, we always do at the end of the episode, we always do final thoughts, and this could be sports related. It could be anything related. You want me to go first?
Yeah, go first, Don.
So I saw something yesterday on Twitter, and I didn't think about it until I actually read it. But like this, because of this season and the way that the schedule has worked out, the Eagles have 3 1:00 games all season long.
Oh, I hate it.
So I did it first too. But then I really, really got a chance to pay attention to Red Zone, which I really, really have fallen in love with. Because now what I'll do is I'll have the Reds for these 1:00 games where the Eagles aren't playing. I'll have the Red Zone on the main TV with the sound on, and then in my den I've got a second TV where I've got whatever that Fox, CBS, whatever that main game is. But I really love the Red Zone. But the thing that I saw on Twitter, Jamie Lynch from he's now with the new PHLY network.
Yeah, I saw
put
that.
Out the college. Why does college football not have some kind of version of the Red Zone? Because I feel like there's enough games going on.
I can tell you why. Because a lot of
don't tell me why. Let's make it happen.
I was gonna say like they would need the conferences to like all get together and agree on splitting the revenue.
Yeah.
On this.
Oh yeah. But could you imagine what the revenue would be though?
It would be huge.
It would be insane. And this might happen with these like super conference convergence, like when you have all of these teams that are in the next 3 years are legit there's going to be like 5 major conferences.
Mm-hmm.
And it might be easier with those 5 to say like, hey, listen, let's do this all day Saturday. Like, you imagine just bouncing from game to game. It would just be like a pinball machine.
What you could do is you could have like on like your iPad or your tablet, like the college Red Zone.
Yeah.
And then you can have on your big TV, like the game you really want to watch. Like, let's say if you're a big Penn State fan, you could put Penn State on. Then you'd have on your tablet the Red Zone, right? And then on your phone, you could have another game.
Yeah, I mean so to me, I'm like, like this needs something on some level needs to happen. We have the technology to be able to do it, but like you said, the revenue sharing is really where that comes in, and that's probably what's holding it back. But I saw in that thread of on some level there was an ESPN version of it at some point, and it just kind of like went away. But I feel like that's really something that some kind of college football network could broadcast. And listen, just like the Red Zone, right? The Red Zone only operates from 1:00 to 7:00 on Sundays. Like you could have a college football that starts, it goes from noon until, 1 a.m. and it's just bouncing from game to game to game. That's
the
my
issue
final
with
thought.
college football just doesn't have a commissioner like they do in pro football, where they could say to like one team, okay, you want to be a part of this? Well, you don't get the money for, you're not going to share any money in it if you don't want to take part in it,
All right, you got a final thought for us on the way out?
Yeah, I have a final thought. I know this is a football show, but I do want to bring up that with baseball, I just got an update that for the Braves, Charlie Morton's now out for the season.
Ooh.
Charlie Morton's now banged up, and Max Fried is also banged up. He has a blister on his hand. So it's just Spencer Strider, Bryce Elder, and like Kyle Wright. And Bryce Elder's fallen off. So I just want to throw that out there for Phillies fans, not saying anything about winning, but I just want to bring up that the Phillies right now are looking like they're getting hot at the right time. The Braves are getting cold at the absolute worst time. So we'll see how that plays out.
Eric, one of the Fired Up Sports writers, he and I were talking about this, that gap where the Braves clinched, and they're going to have a bunch of, I'm going to put it in air quotes, not as meaningful games through the end of the season. And then they're going to have a week off after the season ends before they start to play that divisional round. For a season where you are used to playing 6 days a week, 7 days a week, to then have like almost 4 or 5 weeks where you're just kind of going through the motions and playing the games and not really playing for anything, because if everything plays out the way that it probably will, they're going to be the number 1 seed. Like they're going to, I feel like, and it's a short series. So you got to win one of those first 2 in Atlanta. You do that, and then you come home, you can really flip that script really easily. Speaking of baseball, another final thought. The A's are just continuing to cement themselves as a horrible, horrible, horrible franchise. And I don't know if anybody's seen it, but the parting gift that they give to Miguel Cabrera.
I saw that. That was wow.
Is I don't know the exact number, but a less than $100 bottle of wine that they gifted to him for a guy who's a recovering alcoholic and was in treatment because he had multiple DUIs. Talk about something that you are completely tone deaf to. That it was literally like they were like, oh shit, he's retiring. Someone go grab something. Like some of the other gifts were very thought out. They were specific to him or specific to the city, but like the A's just continue to be the A's and be a shittily run franchise. It just, that kind of stuff just boggles my mind. But John, tell them where they can find your stuff.
You can check us out at PLOT Podcast. That's my Twitter handle. My co-host Michael, my cousin, his handle is at Mikey Mikey Angelillo, ANGIOLILLO. We are part of the Fired Up Sports Network of shows, so we retweet and like all of our podcasts. If you follow one of us, you probably have seen that as well. PLOT Podcast, we broadcast live every weekend on Twitter and Facebook. You can find us on Facebook. Look up the PLOT Podcast. Twitter, look up the PLOT Podcast. You can watch replays of any of our shows on Twitter or Facebook as well. Thank you for having me on the show, Don. It was
absolutely glad to have you, and we'll definitely try to do this again.
Yeah, no problem. Right. Thank you so much.
On the way out, go Birds.
Go Birds.
This is the Broad Street Line, where Philly sports fans leave all of their sports hot takes. Call 267-405-3062 and show us your passion for Philly sports. Don't forget to tune in every Wednesday at 8:30 when we listen to your live reactions to the thrill of victory or the agony of defeat.
The Philadelphia Eagles are Super
champions.